Carrie Contey, I'm so glad to be talking to you again on this edge of summertime. Thank you for making time for us today. So this is the month of June, and we're talking all about summertime, how to make it sweeter, particularly around things like travel. I know that like summer for a lot of families can feel exciting and also super daunting, right? Because it's unstructured time. It's a lot of time together, a lot of like unfamiliar new rhythms. So can you tell us what are your best recommendations as we're moving into summertime for families as to how to make it as sweet as possible in anticipation and then in the moment?
Yeah, I love this topic. And it goes along with something that I'm really passionate about, which is chunking down the seasons and really getting clear and really considering like, what are we going for? How do I want to feel this season? So a few of my words are clarity. That's my tippy top. Okay. Then curiosity, both within and with others. So in a way, opening up the conversation, I often invite parents to get clear within themselves first, because what I believe is that when you're clear, when you've taken the time, I do it with writing, other people do it different ways. But in my opinion, power of the pen, when you can pause and just really ask yourself some simple questions. It doesn't have to be big, but it's like, what do I love about summer? What are some of the elements that I want to make sure that we like build in time for? Where are the places that I need to be boundaried? What are some things I need to consider for all of us, whether it's screen time or, how the rhythm of the day will go. So, or maybe even a bigger picture of like, when are we in town? When are we away? When are we working? When is there vacation? Things like that. So clarity, always number one. Then getting curious with your others. Like, what are they thinking about summer? Whether it's a 8-year-old or a partner or even a little one, like, hey, what do you think about summer? What are some of the things you want to make sure we do together? How do you want to feel this summer? I love setting intentions and getting really clear of like, what's the feeling we're going for, so that you can really be aware of when you're feeling that. And then, communicate. I think that's a big one, is really recognizing that whether it's the summer in general or when you're heading out on a trip, being in communication, especially with the other adults involved, and then also communicating with the little ones, can make a world of difference. Just because a lot of times, especially moms, are holding everything up here. Yes. And you can't assume anybody's reading your mind. You really have to be very communicative with your people so that they have a sense of, what's going on, and you have a sense of what's going on for them.
Yeah, lovely. And do you have a favorite tool for I know you had said journaling, but like as a whole family for recording and then like reestablishing or returning to this over the summer? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's your favorite structure there? Because you know how often we start out and we're like, this is what it's going to be. Yeah. And then you're 2 weeks down the road and then you're like, whoa, what are we doing?
I think this is always fun, is getting a piece of paper or, take one of the science fair projects, flip it over and, write, like sit down, maybe say like, all right, this is our summer kickoff dinner.
Yeah.
Let's all throw out things that we're excited about, and making a list that lives somewhere. Maybe it's in the kitchen, maybe it's in the garage, but like a summer bucket list, let's call it. Yes. And all the people involved get to say like, I want lazy days, or I want to go make sure we go to that amusement park, or, and it doesn't mean you do it all, but letting people be heard and getting the excitement going, and then having something that lives somewhere that you can check off. And, I'm cautious about that because sometimes that can put pressure on parents, but that's just one example. But to me, getting it written down, having everybody's voice heard, and posting it something somewhere that is, it could even be like the greatest summer of our lives. And then like, maybe it's not even what you're thinking of doing, but it's all the ways, today, let's write down what we did today that was fun and felt summery.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, yeah. Nice. So returning to it. Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think so.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So this is flowing into another question for me. Often like as parents, particularly working parents, where the rhythm doesn't necessarily change, we can kind of take our like into summer when we want so much to like loosen up and enjoy a bit with our kids, even just energetically.
Yeah.
Like, what are your favorite tips about helping us all get into the spirit of play? Play is a word that is like one of my top words for this year. And I'm still trying to figure out like, how do I like, what is play? And then how do I get there? So what are your thoughts about getting us into play or relax or ease mode?
Yeah.
I'm sure those conversations around visioning and intentionality help, but
yes,
if there are other things, I'd love to hear.
So so that's one of the reasons I love setting intentions, because it can set the tone for like, okay, if my theme for the summer, if our theme is play and feeling playful, like having that as sort of the beacon, having that as the light. And then what I love is really thinking about like micro versions of that. Like it's playful when we put a blanket out on the grass and we eat breakfast outside. Or it's really, it's playful when we have popsicles after dinner and we, sit on the deck and we all just talk about the day. Or it's playful when, we all pack up and go to the pool in the evening or on the weekend. And so having the intention of like, this is what I'm going for. This is what summer feels like to me. And then either making that list and then, but not having it require any of the big stuff only. That to me, it's those little, I call it microdosing play.
Yes.
And, it could be that you get in the car in a silly way, you put them in the car, buckle everybody in, turn it on, get the air going, and then you do laps and they think it's hilarious around the car, like it doesn't take much. I mean, it does take being a little resourced, because that's when you can access that part of your brain that has that creative, playful, those ideas.
Yes.
But even the littlest bits. And here's the thing, as you know, follow their lead. That's their language. That's their native tongue, play.
Right.
And so water and putting out having the little ones bring out all the little stuffed animals and line them up and having a little stuffed animal parade. Like or doing a little bit of art if that's playful for you. I mean, the other thing I want to say about play is adults often play very differently than children play. Yes. And if you as the adult person aren't finding little ways to play the way you feel playful, it could be reading. It could be sitting quietly alone. It could be taking a bath, but considering your self-care as like, okay, what's playful for my soul?
Yes.
It's going to be way easier to indulge some of the play that your little ones like to do.
Yes, I see. And that's where you used the word resourced earlier. And this is what you mean by resourced. I just wanted to pull that forward to everybody because that's such a good word, resourced.
Yeah.
And so this is resourced when we've played in our way and nourished ourselves. And then we're able to play with the littles. Yeah. That's awesome.
So that might be the first question one might ask themselves is if I'm going for a playful summer, what's my play? And what do I need to be doing to get little doses of that? Because then you're not going to resent their play, which is sometimes not how you want to play.
Yes. Yes.
But ideally, there's lots of ways that you play that everybody enjoys.
Yes. Yes. Totally. Lovely. Okay. Now shifting gears away from play into like a total, like, what are your best tools for when things come to a grinding halt? Like, because I just think of that in summer in particular, there's just so many opportunities for things because there's not the like, oh, we've got this and then this and then this, we have all this open time and then things just go, and everybody gets, and then it's like, woo, how do we recover? Yeah. So what are your favorites recommendations around the grinding halt, really difficult, cranky, family moments?
I mean, first and foremost, just sort of throwing your hands up and going like, all right, we're in a moment. Like, this is wild. Like, name it.
And saying out loud. You say it out loud.
And being like, wow, life feels really wild. And it's really intense to be a parent right now. Like, just have your own little, what I call like funny freak out, because that is kind of that name it to tame it. Like that will at least there's something about when we're like running and we're trying to get away from what we're actually feeling that makes it bigger.
Yes.
But when you can turn and go, wow, this is out of control. Woo, I'm getting all activated and my nervous system is feeling crazy.
And kids can manage that, right? Like confirm for us that young children, they can manage that.
Promise they can. They actually know how you're feeling. So when you say it out loud, you know, what you resist will persist, or they will express what it's like what you repress, they will express. So by you expressing it, you're sort of popping the balloon that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and will probably pop anyway.
Yes.
So like pop it and go, wow, parenting is really intense right now. And I'm not, I got to take a moment, and like, they can handle that. Like, and sometimes it's like the thing that just shifts the whole energy.
Yes.
Like sometimes doing the crazy. And here's the difference. When you can do it consciously, when you're like, I need to freak out in a funny way right now, you might still do the thing, but you might still go, this is so hard. But that's very different than going, you're making me crazy. Like, that doesn't work. So it's the same energy expression, but you're one out of 50 times you're trying to own it and move it in a different direction.
Yeah. Gorgeous. Yeah. Gorgeous. Yes.
Okay.
Great.
So there's that. And then I said it before, but I'll say it again. I think water is the elixir. That I think that if life is getting too intense and heated, whether it's filling the bathtub or putting the hose on or going to a pool or getting somewhere where you can be near, it could be filling the sink and letting the little one do pouring. But there's something about water, especially in the summer, that it's a good tool to use for chilling everybody out.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I use it all the time for myself. So that's beautiful. Yeah. Spray them down with the hose.
Spray them down, right? Right. That can do two things. That's fun and playful and a little bit like, you get a little of the angst out. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you. So, another thing we meet in summer is this experience of boredom, right? And I know you have lots of thoughts about boredom and the value of boredom, and we do too over at Sparkle. And I know it well, like that itchy script. And we don't let ourselves as adults meet it very often anymore. Most people don't.
Right.
Because it's so uncomfortable and it's so valuable. So I would love all of your thoughts on that, because I do want to encourage that.
Yeah.
That open, even if it's uncomfortable time.
Yeah. And it might be. And when you hear your little ones or your big ones saying, I'm bored, sometimes the alarm goes off, because then you're like, I'm not going to get my own time, or now I need to figure something else out. But what I love is I always say, like, run the experiment. Like, let's just play with this idea of like remembering that when we were kids, boredom was probably a part of our experience, and recognizing like a lot of really cool self-produced creativity comes from that. And a lot of like sibling creativity often comes from having unstructured time that could make a person say, I'm bored. And so seeing that as like an opportunity, and not feeling like it's your responsibility to get them out of that. I mean, certainly it's annoying to hear somebody whining that they're bored, but I encourage people, I mean, depending on the age, but even with a little 3 or 4 year old, they might say, I'm bored. What should we do? What, like entertain me. It's like, you know what? I have to run to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And like, get yourself out of that conversation for a moment. Like, even if it's for 1 minute or even 30 seconds, and just like, let them hang with it. Don't engage it, and just sort of see what happens. Like, hang back a little bit. Don't run right in and try to, either give them the iPad or get them doing something or feel responsible for being their playmate. Like, let your whole, like, create an environment. I will say this very clearly. I feel it stronger than ever because of the work I'm doing with technology and helping parents really get some clarity around that if you can model and then teach, and I'll tell people how to do this, but if you can model learning how to pause and not grab for the devices right in that moment of having a moment, but like,
yes,
maybe it's 1 second, then it's 10 seconds, then it's 30 seconds, then it's a minute, then it's 5 minutes, and then it's 10 minutes. Like you saying that's a language I want to be speaking around my people. And that's a language, that's a way of being that I want to teach and model and be in relationship with them in. Then you might be giving them one of the biggest gifts you could ever give them in their lifetime by doing that. Totally. Like, I mean that so strongly. Totally. Now.
I am so with you. I am so with you, because then we're going to really feel what we need to feel and move through what we need to move through instead of constantly push it down the road.
You hear not just like what you're thinking, but the more you can make space, you start to hear your heart.
Yes.
Like actually, literally your heartbeat, but also what's stirring and true in your heart. And then when you can let the dust settle even more, you could let the waves of life that you're in settle. I promise you, the wisdom, the knowing, the deeper truths of what you're about start to come through. And the creativity gets wild and wonderful. But none of that can happen if we're always interacting with the world out there or in the devices. So, again, and I mean this, like you might start with a game where you say, all right, this summer, we're going to practice being a family that pauses. And we're going to start with 1 second. All right, go. We did it. Yay. Okay. Day 2, 10 seconds. Let's see if we can do it. We're going to sit at the dinner table and we're all going to go, I'm going to set the timer. We did it. Like, and you basically wean everybody in, and maybe you only do 10 seconds for the first 2 months, but then maybe you do a minute, and then maybe you do 3 minutes, and then maybe you do 5 minutes. And not that that's going to like fix the I'm bored, but the more you model that of like, before we sit, before we have a meal together or before we pick up our devices in the evening, we're just going to sit and have a little moment and take the pause, and really not just recognizing the value in the short term that you're going to allow more of the settling for everyone. But in the long term, you're teaching what I would consider one's most valuable humanhood skill.
Yeah. Gorgeous. That's gorgeous. I just want to reaffirm too, that with my kids in the boredom experiment, which like I was saying before we started recording, I was talking to Carrie about how when I started this company, I was a Luddite. We had almost no phones, no screens, no anything else. So boredom was, we would meet that a lot. And I would witness over and over how these kids, if I could just back out, like suddenly the most spectacular new board game would be invented, and the art materials would come out, and the pine cones would come out, and like, it would be a full afternoon of like inventing this board game. These are my sons, so they're siblings, or whatever it was. Or then we'd all, the creativity would blow my mind. So once I could witness that, then I knew, like, it only took a couple times to be like, oh, I see how this works. And then I was rewarded for the standing down, Yeah,
totally. Yes. And I think that we're in a phase that it's really not as implicit as it was before. Mainly the technology became such a piece of our world. And so, like I said, I don't think it's, I have a client I'm working with, and she is very clear this summer with her 6 and 8-year-old that she would like to have a rhythm where, they're together in the morning, they go for an outing, and then there's a block of time in the afternoon that's quiet time, and she's doing her thing and they're doing their thing. And I'm very clear with her of like, wean them into that. You can't just like throw it like, oh, we're doing 2 hours today, good luck. Like, you've got to like make them feel successful with this. So start small and celebrate a 5-minute, like, ooh, we did 5 minutes. Like, let's cheer. And then maybe at the end of the week, you have a little celebration so that the thing that you want more of, what you appreciates, the quiet time where they can be bored and they can find their own way into play, that is celebrated as a family. And you really make a big, like, oh, we're going to have a ice cream cone tonight, or we're going to do something fun in appreciation that we're a family that can have blocks of quiet time and feel bored and find our way through it.
Yes. Nice.
Which sounds sort of silly, but I think that's where we are. I think that's where we are in this world.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons I love Sparkle Stories, specifically because it's not screen related. Right. It's audio. And a lot of times they can be listening. And then that's when they're getting into, you know, like playing with the blocks or the animals or coloring. And I love that.
Yes. Thank you for saying. Yeah. Thank you for saying. Okay. Last question. This is kind of a biggie, but I know you have some great nutshells on it. Travel, vacation, travel, because we're headed, and that's our main theme for this month is like talking about traveling kids and offering stories for traveling kids. But what are your thoughts about that? How to prepare for it, how to execute it well, what helps make it successful?
Yeah, I love that. And I would say I am such a fan of it. I love that experiential learning and getting everybody out of their normal routines. And I also am very aware that I really like giving people permission to consider it a trip versus a vacation.
Okay.
You know what so what I mean by that.
Say more about that.
Yeah. So when I think of a vacation, I think of free time and doing what I want, and everybody's just loose, and it's all very, you know, as we go, which is an awesome way to do a vacation. But when you have growing humans with you, it may not be what actually happens, because in some ways, especially when they're little, taking them out of their normal routine and putting them in a new environment and having them be stimulated and really often unsure of like what happens here. You know, if you think about it, they don't know. And so you might think like, oh, this is going to be great. We're all going to get away and we all get just kind of do what we want. But I have seen families really enjoy their trips more when they're actually pretty thoughtful about like, okay, what is the intention? How do we want to feel? And then, you know, parents getting clear of like, when are we both on? When is one person on? When is another person on? When are grandparents on?
Yes.
And in communicating with anybody else that you're going to be going with. I mean, it sounds like a lot of work, but I promise you, doing the work and communicating clearly ahead of time will make for a way better experience as a whole group than if you're just like, well, let's wing it and see what happens. Because the unspoken intentions that people may not even be aware of a parent thinking, well, I thought I was going to get to go do this thing. And another parent thinking, well, I thought I was going to get my break. And it's like, if that's not discussed, it can go really south quickly.
I was going to say really sideways. Totally.
Yeah, really sideways.
Resentment builds. Yes, totally.
Yeah. So, you know, what I would do is say, look at the calendar and think about where you're going and what are some of the things you want to do as a family. And then what are some of the things you might want to communicate with each other, partners or extra adults that are going to be involved. And, you know, and then communicate. I like what I call pre-minders. So communicate with your young people, like, if this is where we're going, this is what we're going to be doing, this is who's going to be here. And maybe you don't give them all of it. Maybe each day you're like, okay, let me give you the heads up on what we're doing today. And so the more you can not over talk, but just communicate important information, especially adult to adult.
Yes.
The more likely it's going to go more how you'll be on the same page more often.
Yes.
There'll be less resentment. There's clear communication of who's on when.
Yes.
And, then you're off and running like that.
Yes.
And then, then it does kind of turn into a vacation.
Yes. Because then you have your downtime and
yes,
then you can,
yes, exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I interrupted you. Do you want to
No,
finish
that was it. No, that was it. I mean,
Yes.
it's really the clarity, the good communication, and
Yes.
really bringing everybody in
yes,
in an age appropriate way.
Yes. An expectation of what it really is,
Yes.
which is not necessarily
yes.
a full-on
And I want to
vacation.
add something to that, which is I had somebody say very early on in my professional life, E equals D, expectations equals disappointment.
Right.
So really being aware of the value of noticing what your expectations might be.
Yes.
And if you really are wedded to them, communicating them.
Yes.
And I would encourage to shift from expecting to intending. And to me, deciding how I want to feel and the energetics and the emotional tone that I'm going for. And not saying I want to feel loved and respected, because that puts it on them. I'm talking about, I want to feel playful. I want to feel present. I want to feel lighter, like things you have control over. And if you're aware of that and you tell your people, you're really just setting a tone for the energy to follow that.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I mean, that's gorgeous in 1,000 situations.
Life.
Yeah,
right.
that's
everything.
life.
That's
yes.
life.
How do I want to feel? Yes, totally. This afternoon in this relationship, this summer on our vacation. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. What a meaty conversation, man. We sit down and it's like value dripping out of the conversation.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, so now tell everyone what you're up to now. I'm very curious about this media piece and where everybody can find you.
Awesome. So, my big thing is clarity, if you haven't figured that out. And, I did a free, summer clarity. So if you want to experience how I help people get clear, there's, a recording that you can access on my website, and you will get, guided through sitting down, pausing, going inward, and really hearing yourself and considering how you want to move through summer. So just go to my website, carriecontey.com. And that's where I'm heading. I'm really recognizing that me helping people take a little bit of time each season to really sort themselves out and get intentional and consider like what's meaningful this season for me. And then give you guidance and tools on how to communicate that and do that with your others. I just feel like that's what intentional living is all about. And to me, when like I've done this many years in a row, and when I take the time, whether it's the summer or back to school or holidays, like when I take that little bit of time to do a little bit of clarity writing around what I'm going for, the whole thing goes differently.
Yes.
And it feels way more satisfying and delightful and delicious. And to me, I love summer, and I love getting clear on like, what do I want to make sure I access? And what are the things that I want to like fill my senses with, because that feels summery.
Yes.
And it might be foods, and it might be ways I'm moving through nature or creative things I'm doing. But it's like, I have that micro dose of, I'm doing summer every day. And sometimes it is cutting a flower and putting it in a vase, but I did it, and I can check the box, and I'm like, oh, that was summery today.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. That's great. In fact, this is my last summer with a child at home. I mean, he's going to school. And so now I'm really motivated. I'm thinking we've got to talk about what are we doing together? What feels summery? Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Welcome. I always appreciate conversations with you.
Same. I love it. I love it. So thank you. Have great summers. Reach out if anybody needs me. Come to my website, tap into my stuff. There's so much more.
Yes. I can't encourage everyone enough to do that. Okay. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.